pressing things.
Got one more thing for us?
We do, and suddenly sunshine, life, joy. It's Nutcracker, but in Havana, which is from Carlos Acosta. It's a very Cuban feel, and again, we've got a lovely little clip to cheer us all up.
Good.
With that. There was no Christmas when he was growing up. Castro had banned it all. So we've got this setting in Cuba, and instead of magicians, you've got the uncle coming back from Miami, loads of presents. It's just full of joy, and you've got a reworked music. I love the Tchaikovsky score to death, but this one has been added, so you've got kind of Caribbean flutes and lutes and guitars. Huge exuberance, colourful, bright.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect, and then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello, it's 11 o'clock, which means it's time for tomorrow's newspapers tonight. Join us over the next hour to find out why this cartoon could get you fired, is this the worst advert ever, and what to do if your neighbour doesn't have snow on their roof. I'm Paul Cox, and tonight I've got comedians Josh Howie and Nick Dixon taking you through Saturday's top stories. This is Headliners. But before we go to Saturday's news, let's go to tonight's headlines with Sophia Wensler.
Paul, thank you. These are your headlines from the GB newsroom. A nighttime curfew has been imposed in the fire-hit areas of LA as police warn that anyone involved in despicable looting will be arrested. At least 10 people have died in the wildfires tearing through the region, while an estimated 10,000 homes have been destroyed, with the Kardashians all among the latest celebrities to evacuate. 5 fires are still burning and a man has been detained, but authorities say there's no conclusive proof they were started deliberately. President-elect Donald Trump has been handed an unconditional discharge in the Stormy Daniels hush money case, meaning he won't go to jail or face a fine. It comes just days before the 78-year-old is due to be inaugurated as US president for a second time on the 20th of January. Explaining his decision, Judge Merchan said the protections afforded to the office of the president are a factor that overrides all others. Meanwhile, Trump said this has been a terrible experience and he is totally innocent. Back in the UK, the Health Secretary has warned that use of inflammatory language over grooming gangs risks inciting mass violence. In an interview with the Guardian newspaper, Wes Streeting said vilifying entire communities could lead to atrocities, such as the mosque massacre in New Zealand that killed more than 50 people. It comes as Sir Keir Starmer is under fire after a poll revealed 76% of the public, including 65% of Labour voters, support a national inquiry into grooming gangs. The backlash follows Labour MPs rejecting a Tory-led call for an inquiry. Now, it's being reported that Nigel Farage has said the government should consider allowing Shamima Begum back home to the UK. But the Reform UK leader has hit back, posting on X, saying, "I have never wanted to allow Shamima Begum back into Britain, as I literally say in this interview." Meanwhile, Reform Chairman Zia Youssef has clarified Mr Farage's comments that Miss Begum should be sent back into the UK, but only to be placed in a maximum security prison.
If anyone actually cares about truth, then they should actually look what Nigel actually said, which was that what's happened in Syria is that there's been regime change. And let's be clear about what's happened as a result of that. You have jihadists in senior government positions. If you are a British citizen and you are concerned that there are people in Syrian prisons that are security threats to the United Kingdom, where would you rather they were sitting? Inside a prison in a now potentially jihadist-controlled Syria, or inside a maximum security prison inside the United Kingdom? And that's what the point Nigel was making.
And Mark Zuckerberg has told the Joe Rogan podcast that the Biden administration pressured his company to remove content on the side effects of COVID vaccines. The Meta CEO told Rogan that he's generally pretty pro rolling out vaccines and that they are more positive than negative. But he added, "I think they're trying to push the vaccine program and also censor anyone who is arguing against it." The Biden administration has not yet responded to these comments. Those are the latest GB News headlines. Now it's time for Headliners.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hello and welcome to Headliners, your first look at tomorrow's top stories with 3 comedians. Before we dive in, let's take a look at what Josh and Nick will have to work with on Saturday's front pages. The Telegraph, 1 week supply of gas left as cold bites. The Times, Reeves, UK needs China. Daily Mail, now Labour plots delay to defence boost until the 2030s. Daily Express, it's just not cricket to ban women. The Sun, sex tape. Prem ace arrested on pitch. Daily Star, we're 100% certain you should never give 100%. OK, let's take a look at the first paper now. I think it's with you, Josh, isn't it? The Guardian?
It is. And can I just say that was some excellent hosting there.
Thank you very much, Josh.
You didn't even shout.
I didn't shout, not yet.
It was very easy. Get ready. So, yeah, we're going to go to The Guardian. Grooming gang rhetoric risks inciting massacre. This is from Wes Streeting, arguably the most politically astute of Labour, possibly future Labour leader. And this is him kind of coming out both ways. And he's going, no, yeah, it's really bad what's happened. But at the same time, calm down, calm down. But we always hear this. We always hear this idea that this rhetoric is what's going to lead to violence, and arguably it's withholding this. It's the build-up that's because of people not speaking the truth, that there is a greater propensity per capita of British Pakistani Muslim men to commit these kind of crimes that has led to this kind of rhetoric.
I think you're absolutely right, Josh. What's very interesting here is Wes Streeting is very astute. He's on manoeuvres. He's trying, I think, to place himself in the position of the next Labour leader. But I think his language here is inciting in itself. I mean, saying inciting a massacre, that's taking it beyond the language that's required. What do you think, Nick?
Yeah, well, I don't like what he said. I mean, a couple of things. Josh said he's coming out both ways. That's a separate story. But this is he almost did the classic Norm Macdonald joke. What terrifies me is if ISIS were to detonate a nuclear device and kill 50 million Americans, imagine the backlash against peaceful Muslims. He's almost done that famous joke because he's saying, oh, don't talk about it, you'll incite violence. But of course, it's, as Josh says, and this is a great moment you can all enjoy with me agreeing with Josh, it's that kind of thing that's been the problem, not talking about it, not calling it out. Fraser Nelson saying today in the Times there's still not proper data compiled. So we've not been specific enough. There's been talk of Asian grooming gangs, which is awful for all the Koreans and Japanese. It's not us.
Even grooming.
Even grooming instead of rape and torture. So, yeah, we've been ridiculous about it. And also it helps people who are obviously peaceful members of that community to say, no, it's these people. The more specific you can be, the better. It's the cover-up, it's this kind of thinking that's led to all the problems, in my opinion. Yeah,
Josh, what do you think? I mean, it does feel to me that there may have been some pressure put on Wes Streeting. He is in a constituency which was run close by independent Muslim candidates, and perhaps he's looking at his own constituency and thinking...
No, absolutely. And you see the same with Jess Phillips, someone who has spoken out extensively over violence against women and all these kind of things. But then suddenly, when it comes to having this, national inquiry, sort of punts it, because would it antagonise her own constituents? She was very close. She only got, I think it was 600 votes, 700 votes, something like that.
Just under 700, 693, I believe.
Yes.
Sorry to be Rain Man. That's how much she won by it.
So to pretend that that's not going to have any impact on her decision, and it's interesting to see how this kind of voting, this arguably along sectarian lines, is going to impact politics in the future in this country.
Yeah, and by the way, the national inquiry, in my opinion, is inevitable. Richard Bergen seems to have realised this already. Starmer still doesn't want it. I think the force of it is impossible. And who?
Andy Bergen.
Sorry, what did I say? No, it's Andy Burnham and Richard Bergen. I was thinking they're the same person. Isn't it Richard...
So you all lefties
isn't
the
it
same.
Richard
One's the
Bergen?
Manchester mayor.
Isn't it Richard Bergen that's come out and said he wants it?
Yes, sorry, and Andy
Burnham. Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
I thought you were saying I got it wrong. They're the same person anyway.
Nick can compute getting wrong.
They're literally... No, they're identical. But just one more thing. I clicked a poll, and this was the Telegraph, to be fair, but it said 91% of people felt we should have a national inquiry. So I think the groundswell for that is inevitable.
Well, this is not going away, and neither should it do. At the Times, Nick.
Times has Reeves, UK needs China. So quite a different tone on China from the previous lot, which was Sunak was thought to be a little bit anti-China, sort of vaguely, as far as he was anything. Whereas Reeves is saying, no, we need to be mates with China. She's doing the first trip a British Chancellor's done in more than 5 years. And it is a bit strange in a way, because you might look at Starmer as Mr. Human Rights, and you say, well, China got the human rights, have they got that yet? So there's a bit of a contradiction there, and one wonders about the relationship with the US as well, because the US pretty hostile to China. Elon Musk less so than Steve Bannon when he was more influential on Trump, who was very anti-China. When I say anti-China, anti the CCP, not the country. He's always very clear. It's the difference between the Lao Beijing...
Nor the food.
Versus the CCP. So the people versus the government. But yeah, I think it's a bit of a problem, because China is kind of an enemy, so she's on about the economic benefits, but then there's the whole human rights and national, global enemy thing as well.
I mean, sorry, Josh, any Chancellor of the UK is going to need to work closely with China, along with any of the other big economic powers of the world. Arguably, the timing is not great, but will the timing ever be right?
No, I mean, this is the second biggest economy in the world. We need to grow as a country, and they are where the money is. So, of course, that's what we're going to try and appeal and get some of that dosh. And the fact is, we're always hypocrites. There's lots of countries with terrible human rights that we suck up to because they give us money. Yeah. So, let's just not pretend that we're not hypocrites here.
Yeah, it's China. You'll go over there, they'll put something in your pocket, then suddenly they're monitoring everything you do. You know what I mean? Oh, hi, Rachel. They shake your hand. Suddenly they're monitoring everything she does for the next 12 years. All her data's going straight to Xi's brain or something. That's what you've got to watch out for.
It does feel like she's kind of run away at a time where things are kind of on the rocks in the UK. However, she has to do it. Look, we're going to look at the Telegraph now. Is that with you, Josh?
Yeah, lots of news in Telegraph. 1 week supply of gas left as cold bites. The storage levels are concerningly low as new questions raised over drive for net zero. We need gas.
Yes.
The storage that we had was closed down, stupidly sold off a couple of years before what happened in Ukraine, so that problem wouldn't be as it is right now. But there's also the suggestion that a lot of this story is all down to a company that wants to build a $2 billion expansion plan. So the government are actually saying, come on, they're just trying it on with all of this. And, of course, all of our papers have sucked it up, and we are talking about it here. So it's worked.
Yeah, there is a case of that, definitely, within this story, that it's an opportunity for someone to come and fill that huge gap there with their own business. But, Nick...
You could do it, Paul.
I can. I've got my own gas storage company, Cox Solutions. But, Nick, I mean, this surely, we're a bit cynical, this. I mean, green, is this not just the green agenda biting us?
Of course it is. Well, it's GBNews. No, I mean, it is. It's the decline in nuclear power stations. It's what the Telegraph calls spotty renewable output, a.k.a. wind turbines are rubbish. These rubbish wind turbines, you can't rely on them depending on the weather. And we're too dependent on natural gas. And just compare it, we've got a week supply left. Germany has 89 days. France has 103. Imagine losing to France on anything. Holland has 123. So why are we so far behind Europe? And why is Ed Miliband anything to do with anything? It's a big question.
Well, we see
out there.
Ed Miliband. I mean, we keep seeing him playing the ukulele. I'm not sure when that's fixing anything. Josh, for me, it is a case of we need to have a smorgasbord of renewables and fossil fuels available to us to maintain, if nothing else, a fuel sovereignty within the UK, so that we're not relying on anyone else.
Well, they're saying that we also have our own supplies, coming through as well. So it's not just about storage. And they're saying that we're also, most importantly, we're not going to run out. But yes, it is about a mixture. And as Nick mentioned, nuclear is important, and we have to reinvest and get some stations up and running.
Well, yeah, the Express now, Nick. What have the Express got for us?
Express has It's Just Not Cricket to ban women. So this is the England cricket chiefs and players are being urged to do the right thing and boycott a match against Afghanistan in a gesture of defiance to the Taliban. Now, Afghan rulers have outlawed women and girls taking part in the sport since they returned to power in 2021, which isn't surprising given that they don't even let women look in or out of a window. We have to remember the context. We did a story the other day that women aren't allowed windows with the Taliban. So, of course, they're not going to be allowed to play cricket, you know, because that's like, to me, that's way higher on the scale of rights than a window or a well. So, yeah, so the question is, should we boycott? And I'm thinking about it just now live on air, but I'd say, yeah, probably.
And over to Josh.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think they should boycott it because it's validating that regime, that level of misogyny, and I think it's right that they do so. And I've seen some suggestions online like, no, this is going to open them up. It's like, no, this will show them what the rest of the world thinks about how they are treating half of their population. I also like this picture of Wurzel Gummidge there. I think that's really good.
I think his real name is Rod Stewart.
Oh, I did. The two are the same.
Yeah,
wow.
80 years old, by the way. Congratulations. Not done yet. I mean,
and Martin Clunes is back, but he's sad about tax raid on farming. Who knew?
Well, I mean, maybe he's looked around at other middle-aged men and thought, where can I get in on the action? Yeah. And it is farming right now. Well, OK, let's take one last look at the front pages with the Daily Star. I think that's with you, Josh.
Yeah, we're 100% certain you should never give 100%. So this is something you should only ever get 87% behind something. If you go full 100%, maybe you get, like, blinkered... and that makes sense. Like, I'm into board games. I've given 100% to them, and that's taken over my life. I'm into having kids. I've got 5 kids. That's taken over. So I would say definitely 87% is a good. 4 kids is the way to go.
5 kids, 100% kids. Then is that the maximum?
That's the maximum you're allowed.
I would say it's 500% kids.
But we've left the EU, so we can have as many as we want now. Yeah, I mean, look, never give 100%. It's great news for Lewis Schaefer. He was around 39%, but he's got a lot of leeway there. So it's the boffins once again. I don't trust these.
How much
boffins.
are you giving? What percentage are you giving tonight?
I always give a lot, actually. I'm amazed. I'm still giving, what, 90?
That was the famous Dixon Exhale as well.
No, I do give 100% every time I'm on the show, actually. And the people at home, they know this, which is my camera. They know this.
Well, that's the front...
110%.
OK, 110, there we got it out. Well, that's the front pages roughed up. Still to come, Donald Trump suffers an unconditional discharge. Apparently, Brits are happier, and Pakistanis are 4 times more likely to be involved in something. This is Headliners, only on GB News.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
And fashionistas are keen to see which new trends are set to hit the catwalk.
Well, our next guest is very well placed to share her predictions with us after being a contestant on hit ITV series Dress the Nation, as well as being an upcycling and sewing consultant.
Wow. Joining us now is Tendai Murewe. I want to go back to you appearing on the ITV Dress the Nation.
Right.
Tell us about that experience. What was that like?
Oh, that was one of my highlights as an upcycling consultant. I learned to sew in my kitchen 5 years ago. And then, during COVID, just making masks. Then the next thing I was on a Dress the Nation, making dresses in front of TV. Yeah, it was just incredible. I think we all had all these clothes that we have, but we don't know what to do with them. So mainly I started with men's jackets, taking off the sleeves and putting it like a print on.
I've tried this. I've tried taking off my sleeves before. I now have about 3 jackets with no sleeves. I never managed to put them back on.
You need to come to a workshop.
You
need to come to a workshop.
I need an upcycling consultant. 2025, what can we expect fashion-wise?
I think bold prints are back. People are loving. I think you walk on the streets in frollals and oversized men's
So the
jackets.
exact opposite. We have drastically underperformed this morning. You're just saying, not like us.
We just woke up this morning and thought, it's winter, it's cold, it's grey.
Grey, miserable.
Is that not the way to go?
No, it is. It's still, I think because fashion is expressive. It's whatever you want to express yourself. You know?
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners. I'm Paul Cox, still joined by Josh Howie and Nick Dixon. Saturday's Guardian now, and Donald Trump will be happy with this discharge. Josh?
Very nice, yeah. Trump avoids punishment for hush money conviction and calls case terrible experience. So, yes, his felony conviction has now... It hasn't gone away. He will always have this felony conviction. Yeah. But the judge sort of went, oh, you know, you're president in a bit, so you know what? We're not going to charge you any money. And what does he say at the end? He said, "Sir, I wish you Godspeed as you assume your second term in office." So basically, massively sucking up now. And if he does die in a car accident and over the next 4 or 5 years, we know why this is. So yeah, there's been complaints. First of all, he was found by a jury to have committed these crimes, but the other argument goes these are somewhat technicalities, and did he deserve the possibility of being threatened? Would it have even gone to court in the first place? So now it's all moot, it's all over, and we'll see what Trump's going to get into when he's actually in the office.
Yeah, what do you think, Nick?
Well, the left got obsessed with this thing about him being a convicted felon. And technically they'll still get that because he's technically a convicted felon on this. But what they didn't seem to realise is the voters don't care about that. That's just your language, and we know how partisan they were anyway. So they just didn't hold any weight with the voter. As Trump says, the real jury, the American people, have spoken, and that is actually true. And on the other point Josh mentioned it, he goes, I get indicted for business records. Everybody should be so accurate. So it's such a minor thing to get a president for. It's all just a bit of an embarrassment, I think, and it's completely failed.
But the interesting question, is what would have happened, do you think, if he hadn't won?
Well, that is interesting because it's ended up being a bit of an anticlimax, hasn't it? And I think that actually this judge seemed to be partisan against Trump, or at least his rhetoric was leading up to this. So I think people were expecting maybe he'd take this opportunity. And I think you're right, Josh. Had he lost, then he may well have taken this opportunity here, but he didn't lose. So... it's just been passed to one side. But as you say, he will have this held against him now for the rest of his life. The Telegraph
How long that may be.
Yes, well, a long time, hopefully. The Telegraph, and 58% of Brits are happy, apparently, Nick.
Yeah, I've not met them, but so Britain's happier since pre-COVID days as people feel things can only get better. So this comes from UCove, and hilariously, no one was really sure what it was, but there was a suggestion that it was just things have got so bad that people don't believe they can actually get any better. So it's a kind of theory they've just hit the wall, and it must, which is kind of the optimistic nature, hope springs eternal, etc. But that's kind of magical thinking. That's not really how things work. Things can still get worse. But this is what they've gone with. I mean, I looked on this Telegraph poll. 42% said they were somewhat happy, which is a very British sort of thing when I clicked on the poll. I did find myself wondering if Keir Starmer commissioned this just to sort of say, hey, things are going well. Things are going well. 58%. I'm happier than they've ever been. But because in 2019 was the last time people were happier, apparently, where it was 61%. Then there was COVID, destroyed it. Now we're building back on sheer just bloody-minded hope that it can't possibly get worse.
Except for the fact this was January 1st. So the last week has proven that actually maybe we were all mistaken.
Are you feeling any happier, Josh?
I was feeling optimistic, and then it's just more and more. And now I realise my mortgage is
It's a bit of a worry. I mean, this was conducted by Professor Paul Dolan, a behavioural scientist and a happiness expert. I mean, what a job for a start. And he was saying the policy's response from COVID did a lot of harm. Who would have thought it? And maybe the pain is wearing off. I think he has a point here. I think people collectively have forgotten about what took place during those times. It was pretty dark times. And, of course, it's a strange paradigm, really. We're comparing it with probably the worst time in living history to today, which is...
not living it... Well, I mean...
Well, our living history, perhaps.
Well, your personal living history.
Yeah.
By the way, there's a pandemic that's pretty much starting around, so we will be back where we were.
You know this must be a nightmare job, happiness expert. Imagine you're at a party. What do you do, mate? Happiness expert. Give us a smile. It's like comedians. They always say, tell us a joke. Why aren't you funny, etc.
What do you do, mate? I work on GBNews. I hate you.
I'm going to say happiness expert from now on.
Have you watched it? No.
No, I don't.
Get out of my party.
Well, on that note, more from the Telegraph now, and a statistic that many will not be surprised by, Josh.
Pakistanis up to 4 times more likely to be behind grooming. So we finally have a bit of data. And this is a national police scheme that was basically in the wake of the Investigate, yeah. And this is what they've come up with. This is the suggestion that 13% or 13.7% of child sexual exploitation grooming offences were accounted by British Pakistani men, which, because 2.7% of the population are British Pakistani men, that was just... Now, the interesting thing here is that this is last year's data. So I'm assuming that since these crimes, that a lot of them happened at their peak, seemingly about 10... You know, they are still going on now, but at their peak seem to be more like 10, 15 years ago. Well, if that's the data for this year or last year, what was it like then?
Well, exactly.
Yeah.
What do you make of this, Nick?
Well, absolutely. As I said earlier, Fraser Nelson, I mean, he did a terrible article about immigration recently, but he said today the full data has not even been compiled. And these stats looked a bit low compared to what I've seen, but maybe it's at least a start. I see a lot of stuff online, people trying to attack white people. You always get these bad actors, and they don't understand per capita, or they pretend not to misrepresent, you know, because you can always look in a white majority country, you can say, well, what about white people doing blah, blah, blah. But this is a specific type of crime, and so we need to know the data on this particular type of crime. And as I said before, we need to get incredibly specific about it. People were worried about being racist. Turns out these are actually racist attacks, so we need to get honest about the data. We saw the other data as well. Foreigners, this is the Telegraph, not my words, 3 times as likely to be arrested for sex offences as British citizens. And actually, Pakistanis weren't even in the top 6 on that.
Well, this is the type of data that we either haven't had or we have had and appears to have been hidden in some way. And it's this type of data that we need to create the baseline of this discussion. Because if this discussion isn't transparent and open, then we're never going to solve the problem and the victims are never going to get justice and it'll keep repeating itself. So the fact that we're now seeing this data, and OK, it's showing us what a lot of us thought to be true, but at least now we can have open and honest conversations.
Hopefully, calm discussions, as you say, in terms of where resources, police resources, can be allocated in terms of prevention, in terms of stopping any crimes that may be going on. And but they're still being disingenuous in the way they're sort of saying that this is part of the same report that they admit that there's a disproportionate number of British Pakistanis linked to child grooming, but then they say, it could be a statistical sampling. It could be because the victims were easier to identify. It's like now we need to start getting honest about why this is the case. And the reality is it comes down to cultural issues. It's not about race, ethnicity. These are cultural issues that have been brought over from Pakistan, attitudes towards, and particularly white young girls. And this is the stuff that we need to look at. And you know who else needs to look at it? The British Pakistani community.
We need to move on, but Nick, I feel like you wanted to say
more. No, because we've got more similar stuff.
Yeah, OK, let's go.
Carry on.
To the Times now, and the Muslim Council of Britain continue to struggle to make friends, Nick.
Yeah, I'll get in trouble on this one instead. So it's new national groups needed to give Muslims a voice. Yes, the Muslim Council of Britain is saying that Labour hasn't shown signs of re-engaging with them, and there's talk instead of having this Muslim Leadership Council and so on. And Labour was speaking to a variety of community leaders, that term again. And they're complaining, they're saying the Jewish community has, which is less than a tenth of the size, has a number of prominent organisations. They don't have organisations. Now, one problem is, are they reliable? I mean, they started attacking GBNews recently and going through everything we've said and claiming we're anti-Muslim and all this. So I'm always worried about pressure groups like this. The basic problem is this. In the West, we think in terms of individualism, we think we're sort of past tribal thinking. But in multiculturalism, you always get groups representing their own interests, and they are thinking as a group. So this is the tension that we have. And even this thing with white girls, I mean, this is... If white people think in a group, of course, they get called Nazis, and yet people raping and torturing them think of them as a group, as white people. So it's this tension in multiculturalism between Western individualism and this kind of group thinking. To me, that's what's at the heart of this, and that's a bit broader, because I want to speak loads about the Muslim Council of Britain, particularly because I don't know everything about them, other than they attacked Leo Kearse. So they're not all bad.
Well, I do want to get specific.
Yeah, go on.
And the fact is, I think this is a really good idea. I think the Muslim Council of Britain are not fit for purpose. They have ties to extremists, which is why successive governments have not had this connection, including this present Labour government. And there is a need for organisations to come in, for organisations set up to represent a broad representation of British Muslims and speak for them and lobby for them. All I would say is do a background check. You know, check out their social media, see who they are actually connected to. There are extremists within that community, and they should be excluded from any group body. And I think it's a really good idea.
Well, for balance, I agree with Josh and Nick. Still to come, cartoons are racist, reform are evil, and Pakistani airlines are back with a bang. This is Headliners, only on GB News.
Time for your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. A very good evening to you. Temperatures falling sharply out there at the moment, leading to a very frosty start to the weekend. Many of us will have a dry weekend thanks to high pressure. But although the pressure's high, the temperatures are going to be low. Under this high pressure, clear skies and light winds, meaning temperatures likely to get to minus double digits, minus teens across parts of northern England and Scotland. Not quite so cold further west. There's a weather front here. It's been bringing a little bit of rain to South Wales, southwest England, and it'll bring a bit more to parts of Northern Ireland through the night. But it also means here temperatures will be lifting, maybe some snow over the hills, but mostly it'll be rain and drizzle. Elsewhere it's dry. Fog is going to thicken up through the night. The Welsh Marches across the Midlands, parts of East Anglia, Lincolnshire too. So be aware of that because it could last for much of the day. Not as cold in the morning across the southwest and southwest Wales. Outbreaks of rain for Northern Ireland. Dull, damp, drizzly start here, but it should turn brighter through the day because this rain's going to creep into western Scotland. Again, here, not as cold first thing in the morning, but where there's snow lying on the ground over the Cairngorms, we could be as low as minus 15 or minus 16 Celsius. So a cold start. Potentially a little icy in places. The fog is likely to stick over parts of the Midlands and East Anglia, but it will be very patchy in nature. The rain also fairly patchy in nature as it trickles towards western Scotland, North Wales and northwest England. As I said, it'll turn a bit brighter in Northern Ireland. Many places fine and sunny. Temperatures, though, still struggling in the east. 2 or 3 degrees. Where the fog sticks, we probably won't get above freezing. And temperatures will be back down below freezing across much of England and Wales Sunday morning. Again, some dense patches of fog around. Bit of a switch, though, for the northwest. A more active weather front coming in here, bringing a bit more rain and a strengthening wind. And look at where the wind's coming from now. The south, bringing milder air, but it'll still be pretty cold across the south.
Thank you, Britain.
Thank you for watching.
Thank you for listening.
Thanks for subscribing.
Thank you for your support. It's you that make us the People's Channel.
As we reflect on our journey so far, we're filled with immense gratitude.
You mean the world to us. We couldn't have reached this point without you.
As a very special thank you, we are giving you the chance to win one of 50 GB News thank you boxes. They're worth £50 each.
For full terms and conditions, and to enter, just go to gbnews.com/thank you.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners. Let's take another look at Saturday's front pages. The Telegraph, 1 week's supply of gas left as cold bites. The Times, Reeves, UK needs China. Daily Mail, now Labour plots delay to defence boost until the 2030s. Guardian, grooming gangs rhetoric risks inciting massacre. The Sun, sex tape, Prem ace arrested on pitch. And the Daily Star, we're 100% certain that you should never give 100%. The Guardian now, and in a surprising twist of events, the Met have remembered that Jewish people live in London too, Josh.
Yeah, wow, only took them 15 months. Mark Rylance joins criticism of police ban on pro-Palestine march in London. Mark Rylance from BBC Wolf Hall, Charlotte Church, various other people have signed it, 150 people. And here's the deal, right? They're meeting, they want to protest, they want to gather outside the BBC building. That's fine. I've protested outside in front of the BBC. But there is a synagogue nearby. They want to do it on a Saturday morning when Jews are going to synagogue, Shabbat. And the police have been trying to negotiate with PSC, who are Palestinian Solidarity Campaign, who are organising it, and they've been very intransigent about it. This is the PSC. And so the police said, well, you can't do it now. Here's the thing, right? Here's the other thing, is I had an argument earlier on Patrick's show, and the point I really wanted to make was that there's a balance of rights here in that people have the right to protest. I think I don't like what these protesters are doing and the shouts and whatnot and the intimidation of Jewish people, but they have a right, and Jews have a right to pray in synagogue without intimidation, getting there, but also to not hear chants calling for the genocide of Jews and whatnot whilst they're doing this praying. And there are other options. In this case, they could start in Westminster, end up at the BBC, which is by the time the service would then have finished and the Jews would be gone from that area. It's a block away. Or they could march later in the afternoon, or they could go on a Sunday, or there are 5 other alternative routes. There's lots of options here, but you know what? They want to be near the Jews. They want to be near the Jews, and that's the problem. So that's what the police done. Will they actually, because the PSC is saying, no, we're still going to do it, so are the police actually going to enforce this?
Be very interesting to see. Nick, what's your take?
Well, what I would do, I wouldn't even have to face the question of the protest, because I would stop anyone coming in who wants to do things like this. And, of course, I mean actors. They are the problem. Mark Rylance is the one who's talking about this star of Wolf Hall. I just get rid of all actors. They're all narcissists. They're insane. I've been out with some actors, very pretty, but completely insane. The funny line here is, well, it's kind of funny. They say, so the decision to start the blah, 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 it goes on and says, what they describe as the corporation's pro-Israel bias, and of course the BBC denies any bias. Some might say the bias on the BBC is the other way. I mean, there might be some secret pro-Israel bias, but when I've seen BBC, they clearly... It'd be quite strange in a way, wouldn't it, if all the sort of lefty organisations in the world took on the kind of pro-Palestine view, but the BBC just didn't. Now, of course, the BBC are totally neutral, obviously, so I'm being purely satirical, but it's just quite interesting that they see a pro-Israel bias, because many see the opposite in the BBC.
Yeah, absolutely, and there's been reports written about it, you know, hundreds of different incidents of arguably anti-Semitism and certainly unbiased reporting. Biased reporting. And... much less so with the unbiased variety. And so, yeah, there is an irony here where they're protesting in front of the BBC because it's just ridiculous.
Well, we either believe whistleblowers or we don't. And there have been a number of whistleblowers at the BBC that have said this is what they've seen, and they've shared internal messaging and internal emails. Sorry, Nick, what were you going to say?
No, and obviously we have to say the BBC denies any bias. Of course, they're impartial. I was just going to say that the question is interesting of where, because it reminded me of the people praying outside the abortion clinics, and people say, well, why do you have to do it there, even though they're silently praying in their head. So there's always these tensions, why do you have to do it, as Josh says, near the synagogue? And it just reminded me of that. But we have so many problems like this in our culture, don't we, where do you ultimately say they should do the protest then?
I think they should have the right to protest. I mean, that's an important part of living in a Western liberal
democracy. But there's so many options. By the synagogue, but of course they would do it there to cause maximum...
Well, this is it. That's the point, is that they're saying, it's got nothing to do with Jews, yet they've all these other options that don't involve Jews, they won't take. So then they're proving that they're lying, frankly.
It feels like they're being a little antagonistic, at least. Saturday's Telegraph, and sharing cartoons is now a sackable offence, Nick.
Yes, this Reform candidate reposted a racist, inverted commas, Mac cartoon. He was sacked by a housing association. So this is extraordinary. This is Sabah Hersaidi, and he was associated with the Reform Party, but the Hightown Housing Association said that his stance by being with Reform or a Reform follower was in direct conflict with its own values. So the Housing Association had values that were against things like their Reform's policies on immigration, net zero and housing. And it's this weird thing. I mean, I've said it before. And by the way, he also claims he was refused a second job as a damp and mould inspector because of his links to fraud. So you can't even look at damp and mould because of the values.
And no one wanted that job.
No, exactly.
We do actually have the image of the cartoon.
Okay.
Yeah, we could.
Oh, the cartoon.
It's up on screen now, as people can see. Hopefully, for those that are on the radio, you won't be able to see it. You'll have to tune in when you get home.
Don't worry, darling.
If the UEA buys a Telegraph, I doubt the cartoons will change.
Yes.
And it was a woman in a burqa and she's bringing the guy's tea. So it was quite funny piece about, if the Telegraph is taken over. So it was a perfectly funny cartoon. Obviously, Matt, the cartoonist, is not known for being extreme, so it's completely absurd. But I've said it before, I don't want to get too boring, but there are no morally neutral institutions in our current system. Because this is the system we're in. We're in mass democracy. We're in this total state. You'll notice all corporations have to signal their virtue and be woke. All public institutions have to do this. So the Hightown Housing Association has values. Why should it even have values?
That's the point, isn't it? It's Natalie Sturrock, who's the Hightown's Director of Housing. She's saying his activities and public profile with the political party, i.e. Reform, gave rise to a conflict of interest. Now, what do you make of that?
I think it's disgusting. And as you say, it's political discrimination. It's overtly. What's interesting is it was so overt that she admitted it.
Yes.
Because how many people are not getting jobs? How many gigs are we not getting booked for because we are appearing on this channel or saying views that people... that our peers don't like, yeah.
Yeah, it definitely goes against us, and it's definitely gone against this chap. This conflict of interest business is outrageous, really, and the fact that this is a political party and this is a cartoon that got shared in the Telegraph.
Yeah, I mean, he even admits, very humbly, that his position with Reform was not compatible with the customer-facing role. I don't even particularly agree with that, but certainly if you're just looking at damp and mould, I mean, come on.
Does he say that, though?
He does
No,
say...
I think it's what she was saying. They were saying to him. That was their reason, was that people might recognise him from Reform. Now, they're not anti-immigration. They're pro-controlled immigration. Now, I'm not a Reform supporter, but the point is that just because you are a supporter of Reform doesn't make you like some person who can't be near immigrants or anything.
Also, a legitimate policy that's probably supported by a large number of the constituents within Hightown's area. Anyway, our first look at tomorrow's Independent now, and not only are Reform evil, they are being paid to be evil, Josh.
Terrible. Reform MPs, including Nigel Farage, paid thousands by Elon Musk's ex for posting on the site. Now, this is because the Reform MPs that they're talking about here, and we're talking about a couple of £1,000, they have declared it, whereas other MPs probably haven't declared it yet. There is a system now where if you get verified and you pay for this thing, and I did it recently because it was like 40% off or whatever. It's like 60 quid, and then you can edit your tweets. And I type angrily, and then I post, and then I go, oh, God, I spelt there and there wrong. So that sort of gave me this option. What I didn't realise is you get a bit of dosh. Like, if you get engagement, and I got £127, so I feel a little bit weird about it because I've been doing it like this, arguing with anti-Semites since sort of 2016, 17. I haven't been paid. I'm doing it till, like, wake up at 6:30 in the morning, waking up and just making the kids lunch, and I'm like... And so I feel a bit weird to get paid for that now. But the fact that these guys are getting paid is anyone who's gone through this process and got that tick and pays for it gets a little bit of money.
Yeah, they're not being treated
differently to anybody
differently
else.
in any way.
Yeah.
Nick?
No, exactly. And I get this because, I've got the blue tick. And the only
How much do you get?
More than you said. No, but mine goes up and down. It depends. It's a good question because what I've noticed, and it does make you feel a bit weird, it's in direct proportion to my level of rage. So during the Southport incident, my money went way up because I was so angry. I was posting about it so much. And it's to do with engagement. And the downside is people game it. They say, what do you notice about this Taylor Swift video? And there's nothing to notice. But then you've watched to the end, people have commented, why are you saying this? And they get money anyway.
What do you notice about the Southport video?
Exactly. So that's the problem with it. But there's nothing wrong with it. It's just an X gives a much better deal, many people say, than YouTube because you're a higher percentage. So you can make much more money on there. Who knows how long it'll last? But I also think it's hypocritical of the mainstream media because what is their model? Their model is inspiring fear, so you click on it, or anger, so you click on something. Is it so different? I mean,
that's a great point.
In my case, I'm just doing what I actually feel. If you're gaming the system, I think that's bad. But if you're just saying what you think and you get paid some money, why not?
Yeah, so can I say one more thing? People are gaming the system and it is spreading misinformation. What's interesting is what Elon Musk did recently was he took away the ticks from, or demonetised a bunch of very anti-Semitic who were deliberately putting out this fake stuff out there, partly, I believe, through anti-Semitism, but partly because they were getting such a big response because there's so many anti-Semites out there in the world. So they are furious about it and they go, what about free speech? Well, you still have the right to say what you want to say, you're just not going to be rewarded for it.
Good. Exactly. To the Daily Mail, and Pakistan Airlines are back with a bang, Nick. Hey, see?
Pakistan Airlines comes under fire for tone-deaf adverts showing jet flying into the Eiffel Tower as it resumes Europe flights after 4 years safety ban. I don't know if we have a picture, but basically it's exactly what it says on a tin. It's a plane, looks like it's going to hit the Eiffel Tower, and you're like, lads, do you want to show the pic? Or,
yeah, but we're standing by it, and the pic's
basically like, did you not think this through?
It's on screen now.
Did you not think it's through for a second? I mean, it's quite near the Eiffel Tower as well. It's like, and these things have been known to occur.
It's going to clip it at least.
Yeah, so for the wing is going to be taken out. So yeah, it's absolutely mad, and they've had some safety issues, shall we say? 97 people died in Karachi. Get this. Out of 860 pilots currently licensed in Pakistan, investigators identified 262 who did not take the exam themselves and don't have flying experience. They sent their mate along to just give me the cliff notes on how to fly. I mean, this is unbelievable. You forget, you see, other countries don't have our standards, so we need to have standards. They grounded 150 pilots who were suspected of having cheated their way through the exam. Guys, this is not an exam you can cheat. And the only thing is they overfilled the flight as well by 7 extra passengers. On that one, I'm like, maybe there is too much regulation. You know, the EU are a nightmare. Stick a couple of people. But when it's like, your mate took the exam for you, this is where I draw the line.
Well, I'm afraid I'm going to have to go to the break now, but still to come, boring is the new cool. No snow on your roof could mean you are being naughty, and having sex can save your life. This is Headliners, only on GB News.
Looking happy.
Well, the forecast looks good.
So you've sorted the travel insurance then?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
It's not too hard to find something a little warmer than the UK. Around the Mediterranean, temperatures are generally in the low teens, but it's not completely dry. A few showers are possible across Cyprus this weekend. So looking fairly wet across southern Italy and Croatia, although that rain will be scooting away by Sunday. Plenty of sunshine across the east and the south coast of Spain, and lots of sunshine for the Canaries. It will be quite breezy in Madeira. Quite a lot of cloud likely here over the next few days as well, turning a little colder in Italy.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Britain's newsroom, weekday mornings from 9:30.
Mr. Motivator, he joins us now. Mr. Motivator, a very happy new year to you. Thank you so much for joining us on the show. There you are, bright and early. So how are things? How can we all kick ourselves into shape?
By the end of January, most people have thrown their New Year's resolution out the window. I think what's important is that we make a change for life, and we set ourselves small goals, and as we achieve those goals, then we reward ourselves. And in other words, you want to run 10K, you don't immediately get up and go run 10K, do you? You run between 2 lampposts and walk between 20. If you're not into running, don't choose running. If you're into dancing, that's great. If you're into any kind of movement, that is the way to keep yourself active, healthy, and also maintain your independence.
So, Derek, is the point that you keep it manageable and small enough that it's achievable?
Why don't we just find 4 exercises that you do for 1 minute each exercise, and you do that 4 times a day? Achievable, isn't it? That's only 4 minutes of exercise. And I guarantee at the end of the day, you'd have done 12 minutes, which is like your daily dozen. So there's your goal. I want to do a daily dozen of exercise lasting a minute each, right? And the first thing you could be doing is getting up from your chair, right? The moment you stand up, you incorporate so many muscles in your legs, right, that you're going to feel good, yes? So,
right, go on then. Get up off your chair, Adam. Show me how it's done.
Easy, come on.
Easy, yeah. Look at
no
that.
hand. The next thing I want you to do is to reach up real high. And if you bring it down, up
I'll
and
do
down.
that one.
Yeah.
For a minute, palms facing.
Oh, for a minute?
You're not flying a minute. That's better.
There we go.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got, in my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. We're going to go to the Daily Mail now, and there's a big story about Mark Zuckerberg. John.
Yeah, it's a big deal. Mark Zuckerberg told Joe Rogan that the Biden administration tried to force him to censor a meme about COVID-19 pandemic in a surprise appearance on the popular podcast. This is a really big deal. Joe Rogan does this. He kind of drops these podcasts out of nowhere. Mark Zuckerberg, pretty famous bloke, pretty influential on the world, and to admit that the White House essentially was calling up Meta, which is the name of the parent company, and sort of screaming and saying, take this down. It was a stupid meme that basically about had Leonardo da Vinci, and he was pointing at the screen from DiCaprio, sorry, yeah, Da Vinci. And it was basically saying about, like, in 10 years' time, we're going to be seeing adverts that if you took a vaccine, you would need to get monetary recompense and whatnot. And, yeah, the idea that the White House, and we've seen evidence of this before, but to hear this kind of from the horse's mouth, so to speak, that the White House was calling up and saying, take this down, put this up. And when you see this week, as Zuckerberg said, they're going to stop this censorship, that you see the hypocrisy of the people who are going, oh, no, it's going to mean that we're going to get lies. We've already had... this is what they're talking about. We've had 5, 6, 7 years of lies already. Yeah. Now the point is, may the best fact win.
Yeah, Nick?
Absolutely. And someone had a really interesting tweet that people go to Rogan now as a kind of absolution booth. They go through, like, you know, you've done these crimes, but you've come out... This is what Zuckerberg did. He obviously felt bad about it. As I said the other night on here, he felt bad about the Hunter Biden laptop. And there's others here, he's like, no, we're not going to take down humour. And now he's gone full MAGA. But I think in general, the tech world just has found the Democrats to be just far too restrictive. Mark Andreessen said similar things. And they've basically lost all of Silicon Valley and adjacent people. And it's a massive mistake by the Dems. But we're in the MAGA era because now they see that there's much more freedom for them.
Yeah, let's move on. Saturday's Independent, and there's a new status symbol for us all to strive for, Josh.
Yeah, why being boring is the newest status symbol. There's a lot of pages here, and it doesn't actually get to why this has happened at all. But supposedly the cult of boring has become, on social media, quite a status symbol, staying in, being homebound, not drinking, being boring, basically. Yeah, and that seems to be, for Gen Z, millennials and we're all, and Gen X, we're all about, get out, I'm on headliners.
David Brent in the office.
But Gen Z, they're not all about that.
They're not. They're not.
Stay, chill at home and light some candles.
Millennial, Nick?
I am technically a millennial, and I think it's decline. I would say it's decline. This is just my go-to. Life's hard. We've got no money. We're poorer than Mississippi if you take away London. There's lack of cultural cohesion over anything else. We don't have many shared things anymore. So maybe people are just going, check out my Hoover, and that's just where we are now. I don't know. And also boredom, by the way, is an achievement, though, isn't it? You hear people like Jordan Peterson, it's a bloody miracle. It's an achievement to actually get to where people can be bored and not just foraging for food and killing antelopes.
OK, let's try and squeeze in one last story in the last minute. The Express now, and if you don't have snow on your roof, you might be grassed up, Nick.
It's this UK households urged to report roofs missing snow to police, and it's because it means you're making cannabis in there. I didn't know how to phrase it.
Grass.
It's not my world. I'm very scared.
Yeah, for those on the radio, we're showing the picture on screen now. Essentially a snow-covered roof with one part of the roof just really not covered at all.
Kerry Marx's house.
Making the doobie. The weed, smoking the spliff.
Yeah. It makes it too hot. You have all these heat. I'm told it's a hot house environment, Paul. Literally, that's a metaphor.
So that's it. And the police are literally sending out these drones to look for these roofs. So there you go.
Snitches get stitches, though, don't they? I mean, should we be going around?
Knife is stone, you can't be bothered.
Not most of them. They're chilled.
Well, the show is nearly over, so let's take a final look at tomorrow's front pages, shall we? The Telegraph, 1 week's supply of gas left as cold bites. The Times, Reeves, UK needs China. Daily Mail, now Labour plots to delay defence boost until the 2030s. The Guardian, grooming gang rhetoric risks inciting massacre, and that's Wes Streeting. The Sun, sex tape, Prem ace arrested on pitch. Daily Star, we're 100% certain that you should never give 100%. That's it for tonight's show. Thanks to my guests, Josh and Nick. Nick will be back tomorrow night at 11 p.m, joined by Steve N. Allen and Lewis Schaefer. And if you're watching tomorrow at 5 a.m, stay tuned for breakfast. Good night, good morning, and God bless.
How dare you?
God bless.
That's my thing.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Time for your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. A very good evening to you. Temperatures falling sharply out there at the moment, leading to a very frosty start to the weekend. Many of us will have a dry weekend thanks to high pressure. But although the pressure's high, the temperatures are going to be low. Under this high pressure, clear skies and light winds, meaning temperatures likely to get to minus double digits, minus teens across parts of northern England and Scotland. Not quite so cold further west. There's a weather front here. It's been bringing a little bit of rain to South Wales, southwest England, and it'll bring a bit more to parts of Northern Ireland through the night. But it also means here temperatures will be lifting, maybe some snow over the hills, but mostly it'll be rain and drizzle. Elsewhere it's dry. Fog is going to thicken up through the night. The Welsh Marches across the Midlands, parts of East Anglia, Lincolnshire too. So be aware of that because it could last for much of the day. Not as cold in the morning across the southwest and southwest Wales. Outbreaks of rain for Northern Ireland. Dull, damp, drizzly start here, but it should turn brighter through the day because this rain's going to creep into western Scotland. Again, here, not as cold first thing in the morning, but where there's snow lying on the ground over the Cairngorms, we could be as low as minus 15 or minus 16 Celsius. So a cold start. Potentially a little icy in places. The fog is likely to stick over parts of the Midlands and East Anglia, but it will be very patchy in nature. The rain also fairly patchy in nature as it trickles towards western Scotland, North Wales and northwest England. As I said, it'll turn a bit brighter in Northern Ireland. Many places fine and sunny. Temperatures, though, still struggling in the east. 2 or 3 degrees. Where the fog sticks, we probably won't get above freezing. And temperatures will be back down below freezing across much of England and Wales Sunday morning. Again, some dense patches of fog around. Bit of a switch, though, for the northwest. A more active weather front coming in here, bringing a bit more rain and a strengthening wind. And look at where the wind's coming from now. The south, bringing milder air, but it'll still be pretty cold across the south.
We can expect clear skies, leading to a light and warm day ahead. Lovely. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Imagine how £50,000 in cash from us could make your new year go with a bang. From treats to holidays to fun times with the family, a totally tax-free £50,000 in cash could make you feel alive in 2025. And just one entry into the Great British Giveaway really could make £50,000 cash all yours. For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win.